A Chinese space rocket has blasted off from a launch pad in the Gobi Desert in the first manned mission to China's new space station. Two astronauts will spend a month living on board the orbiting laboratory, and the mission is designed to test Beijing's ability to send astronauts to the moon and eventually to Mars. Keith Cowing is editor of NASA Watch, and he joins us from Virginia. Keith, thank you very much for your time. First of all, what was it like to watch the blast off?
Well, it's quite clear that China is very proud of this mission. They spent quite a lot of time on camera shots and different angles that, really bring the drama of a launch to anybody, anywhere watching. So it was quite unusual in that regard.
This isn't the first time astronauts have been blasted off into space to rendezvous with the space station. How significant is this particular mission?
Well, it's not the first for China, but this is China's second space station, and they are going to build a bigger one after this. And they were quite prominent in mentioning many times on the CCTV and other networks tonight that their third space station will become operational in 2020. However, the space stations that the United States, Europe, Japan, and Russia currently operate, the International Space Station, will be shut down in 2024. And China was very emphatic that it may well be that they will have the only operating space station. So they clearly have big plans.
Why are they pushing further into space when we're seeing other powers scale back their plans?
Well, that's a rhetorical. I ask that question a lot. What is it that China and also India, who has their own growing space program, what is it that they seem to find exciting about doing this stuff when we've done it 30, 40, 50 years ago? That's sort of an interesting question. And it may well be that the space programs of other countries are middle-aged, whereas these younger countries are growing. And, it's sort of a gold standard to say that you've put humans in space, that you've walked on the moon. And in my mind, that is clearly what China and other countries are up to right now.
There are other plans to get to Mars. Are we seeing a competitiveness here? The US is planning to get to Mars at some point, and China's trying to do it as well. Why aren't they all working together?
Well, there is a competitiveness, and it's new this time. Back in the 60s, we had the so-called space race between America and the Soviet Union to go to the moon. And that clearly was a race. But now you have more than one country capable of doing things. Indeed, it's not just countries that can do this anymore. SpaceX has announced that it's going to launch its own mission to Mars in 2018 and keep doing so until they land humans. So it may well be that the first Americans that land on Mars don't work for NASA. And in fact, they may do it in a way that NASA says, well, can we buy a seat?
Just very briefly, China has this space station in space. We know the International Space Station. How do the two differ? Is the Chinese one a bit smaller?
Well, Chang'e-2 is smaller. However, it's based on a Russian design that was used for the Salyut and Mir space stations. And one of the modules on the International Space Station was based on Mir. So everything is overlapping these days. The designs are new, but they're different. China clearly wants to expand its space station presence. And as far as the US and Russia goes, that's not clear right now.
Keith Cowing, editor of NASA Watch, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.